a land that gave birth to some of the greatest generals, powerful kings, bloody revolutions, and global empires in history. Today, the world knows this country as France. But was this land always called France? Or thousands of years ago, was there a completely different world here? A world where France did not exist, the French language had not been created, Paris was not a great capital, and there was no united nation. This is the story of a land that traveled through centuries of transformation. From tribal societies to the rise of a powerful state, every era changed the destiny of this region. And this journey begins thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, the land we now call France was a natural world of vast forests, wide plains, powerful rivers, and snow-covered mountains. Early humans hunted here, built settlements near rivers, and slowly moved toward agriculture and permanent communities. As centuries passed, different tribes began to settle across this land. These tribes later became collectively known as the Celts, while the Romans called this entire region Gaul. The Celtic tribes were divided into different groups, but they shared many similarities in their culture, traditions, and way of life. They were considered skilled warriors. They created iron weapons, traded with other regions, practiced agriculture, and built strong fortified settlements. Each tribe had its own leader, and there was no central government controlling the entire region. Their religious leaders, known as Druids, held an important position in society. Meanwhile, in the south, another powerful force was expanding. It was the Roman Empire. Rome was no longer just a city. It had become a vast empire whose armies were bringing many parts of Europe under its control. And soon, its attention turned toward the land of Gaul. In 58 BC, Roman general Julius Caesar began his military campaign in Gaul. For several years, different Celtic tribes resisted the Roman armies. At first, many tribes fought separately, but when they realized they were facing one of the greatest powers of the ancient world, they attempted to unite. This resistance was led by a young tribal leader named Vercingetorix. He brought different tribes together under one banner and launched a major fight against Rome. In several battles, he created serious challenges for the Roman army. But in 52 BC, the Battle of Alesia changed everything. The Roman forces surrounded the city. After a long siege, supplies began running out, and eventually Vercingetorix surrendered to save the lives of his people. With this defeat, Roman control over Gaul was almost complete. The Roman period brought major changes to this land. New roads were built, cities were established, and bridges, aqueducts, and public buildings were constructed. Trade expanded, and Roman laws and administration deeply influenced life in Gaul. Over time, local traditions and Roman civilization began to merge. The Latin language spread throughout the region, and this influence later became one of the foundations of the French language. For nearly 5 centuries, Gaul remained an important part of the Roman Empire. But by the 4th and 5th centuries AD, the Roman Empire itself began weakening because of internal problems and outside invasions. Roman forces gradually withdrew from the region, and central authority began to collapse. Once again, a power vacuum emerged on this land. But history was about to begin a new chapter. From the north, a new people were moving toward this region. A people who would not only rule this land, but would also help create the foundation of what would one day become known as France. The power of the Roman Empire was now fading. The roads, the cities, and the systems that had defined Gaul for centuries were slowly beginning to weaken. The central government was collapsing, Roman armies were withdrawing, and once again, this land was waiting for new rulers. But this time, the people who arrived were not just going to establish another kingdom. They were going to lay the foundation of a nation that would one day be known as France. During the 5th century AD, different Germanic tribes began entering Gaul from the north and east. Among them, the most powerful were the Franks. At first, they were divided into different tribes, but over time, their power continued to grow. They began establishing their influence over northern Gaul, while the Western Roman Empire was becoming weaker and weaker. In 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire collapsed, and Europe entered a new era. During this period, a young leader rose among the Franks. His name was Clovis I. In 481 AD, he became the king of the Franks. Clovis was not just a warrior. He was a ruler who began uniting different Frankish tribes into a single kingdom. He fought many battles and gradually brought large parts of Gaul under his control. Another major event of Clovis's reign was his conversion to Christianity. This decision did not only change his personal life, it also created a strong relationship between the Frankish rulers and the Church of Western Europe. For centuries afterward, this connection would have a major influence on European politics. After Clovis's death, his kingdom was repeatedly divided among his successors. Internal conflicts often weakened the state, but the power of the Franks did not disappear. Over time, a new dynasty began to rise, the Carolingian dynasty. This family was about to change the course of European history. In the 8th century, a powerful ruler emerged. His name was Charlemagne. In 768 AD, he took power and over the following years expanded his empire on an extraordinary scale. His conquests brought vast regions of Western and Central Europe under a single rule. In 800 AD, the Pope crowned Charlemagne as emperor in Rome. This was not just a coronation. It was a symbol that a new great empire had emerged in Western Europe. Charlemagne was not only a conqueror. He also introduced reforms in education, law, administration, and religious institutions. During his reign, schools were established, ancient texts were copied, and learning and culture experienced major growth. Some historians refer to this period as the Carolingian Renaissance. But like every great empire, Charlemagne's empire faced challenges. After his death in 814 AD, his successors were unable to keep the empire united as strongly as he had. Eventually, in 843 AD, the Treaty of Verdun divided the empire into 3 major parts. One of these regions, known as West Francia, would later gradually become the foundation of modern France. This was the moment when France's political identity began taking a clearer shape. Although the foundation of this new state had been created, it was still not a strong and united country. Powerful nobles, local rulers, foreign invasions, and internal conflicts continued to challenge it. In the centuries ahead, France would have to go through a long journey before becoming a powerful monarchy. And during this journey, a war was about to begin that would last for more than a century. A war that would change the destiny of France and introduce a young woman who would become one of the greatest figures in history. After the division of the empire in 843 AD, West Francia came into existence, but it was still not a strong and united state. Powerful nobles controlled different parts of the country. Local rulers were almost independent in their own regions, and the authority of the king was not the same everywhere. But over the following centuries, things slowly began to change. And this was the period when the foundation of modern France became much stronger. In 987 AD, an important change took place. Hugh Capet was elected king, marking the beginning of the rule of the Capetian dynasty. At first, this dynasty had limited direct control over the kingdom. But over generations, the Capetian rulers gradually expanded royal power. With each new generation, more regions of France came closer under royal authority, and the central government became stronger. During this time, cities began to grow across France, trade expanded, castles and churches were built, and agricultural production improved. But as France became stronger, one of its powerful neighbors continued to play an important role in its politics. That neighbor was England. The two kingdoms had been involved in conflicts over land, inheritance, and power for many years. Eventually, these disputes turned into a war that would change the history of both nations. In 1337, the conflict between France and England began, a war that is now known as the 100 Years' War. Although it is called the 100 Years' War, it actually lasted around 116 years with several periods of fighting. During this time, many major battles were fought, kings changed, alliances shifted, and French territories repeatedly changed hands. In the early years, England achieved several important victories. Its armies captured large parts of France, and at one point it seemed possible that France might not be able to preserve its independence. But history took an unexpected turn. In 1429, a young girl emerged from a small village in France. Her name was Joan of Arc. She claimed that she had been given a mission to help save her country. At first, many people did not believe her, but eventually she was allowed to join the French army. Joan of Arc's presence greatly raised the morale of French soldiers. That same year, the siege of Orleans was lifted, becoming a major turning point in the war. After this victory, French forces began regaining control of several territories. Joan of Arc also played an important role in helping King Charles VII reach his coronation. In 1430, Joan of Arc was captured by enemy forces. She was put on trial, and in 1431, she was executed by burning at the stake. Her life was short, but her struggle became a permanent part of French history. Today, she is remembered as a national heroine of France. Even after Joan of Arc's death, the war did not end immediately. French forces continued their struggle, and over time, the situation began shifting in their favor. In 1453, the long conflict finally came to an end. England lost almost all of its major territories in France, keeping only Calais for some time. This victory was not just a military success. It strengthened the feeling of national unity and shared identity in France more than ever before. After the 100 Years' War, the French monarchy became even more powerful. The central government grew stronger, royal authority expanded, and France became one of the major powers of Europe. But the most dramatic chapter of its story was still ahead. In the coming centuries, France would experience extraordinary wealth and glory. Powerful kings, magnificent palaces, massive armies, and growing influence across Europe. But beneath this rise, a deep crisis was also developing. A crisis that would eventually transform into a revolution that would change not only France, but the course of world politics itself. After the end of the 100 Years' War, France had become more united than ever before. The monarchy was growing stronger, the central government was expanding its authority, and France was becoming one of the major powers of Europe. But this was only the beginning. In the centuries that followed, France would reach a level of wealth and grandeur rarely seen anywhere else in Europe at that time. However, beneath this rise of power, a major crisis was also developing. A crisis that would eventually lead to one of the most famous revolutions in world history. During the 15th and 16th centuries, France continued to strengthen its political power. French kings began reducing the influence of local nobles and worked to bring more authority under the central government. At the same time, the Renaissance movement was spreading across Europe. New ideas were emerging in art, literature, science, and architecture, and France was becoming an important center of this transformation. In the 17th century, a king came to the throne whose name is still remembered among the most powerful rulers in French history. His name was Louis XIV. Becoming king at a young age in 1643, Louis XIV would later become the longest reigning monarch in French history. He believed that the power of the state should be centered around the king. Because of this belief, his reign became one of the greatest examples of absolute monarchy. To display his power and greatness, Louis XIV built a magnificent palace just outside Paris. It was the Palace of Versailles. It was not just a royal residence. It became a symbol of French power, wealth, and royal prestige. Diplomats, nobles, and rulers from across Europe came to witness its incredible beauty and luxury. Today, Versailles remains one of the world's most famous historical landmarks. During this period, France had become a dominant force in European politics. Its army was powerful, trade was expanding, and its influence continued to grow. But long wars, massive royal expenses, and a luxurious lifestyle placed enormous pressure on the national treasury. Over time, financial problems continued to increase. By the end of the 18th century, the situation had become much worse. Poor harvests, food shortages, rising prices, and government debt made life extremely difficult for ordinary people. At the same time, new political ideas were spreading across Europe. Many thinkers began promoting ideas such as the rule of law, individual freedoms, and public representation. These ideas had a deep impact on French society. In 1789, France reached a turning point. King Louis XVI called a meeting of the Estates General to address the financial crisis, but disagreements continued to grow. Soon, public protests began spreading throughout the country. On July 14, 1789, protesters in Paris attacked the Bastille fortress. This event became a symbol of the French Revolution. Over the next few years, France experienced rapid political changes. Many old feudal privileges were abolished, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was adopted, and the power of the monarchy continued to decline. In 1792, France was declared a republic. A few months later, King Louis XVI was put on trial, and in 1793, he was executed. Later, Queen Marie Antoinette was also executed. The revolution completely transformed France's political system, but it also created deep instability. Internal conflicts, political struggles, and foreign wars pushed the country into a new crisis. During this chaotic period, a young military officer was rising rapidly. At first, very few people could have imagined that this same man would soon take control of France, reshape the map of Europe, and become one of the greatest military leaders in history. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. The French Revolution had ended a centuries-old monarchy. But after the revolution, France did not achieve the stability that people had hoped for. Political conflicts were growing inside the country. Different groups were fighting for power, and foreign nations had also entered the conflict to stop the revolution. During these uncertain times, a young military officer was rapidly gaining fame. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. Born on the island of Corsica, Napoleon quickly rose through the ranks of the French army because of his exceptional military abilities. His victories in the Italian and Egyptian campaigns made him famous throughout France. In 1799, he seized power through a political takeover and became the first consul. Just a few years later, in 1804, he declared himself Emperor of France. A new empire had emerged after the revolution. Napoleon was not only a military commander, he also introduced several major reforms to the state system. In 1804, the Napoleonic Code was introduced, organizing many principles related to law, property, and civil rights. This legal system later influenced the laws of many countries across Europe and the world. He also made important changes in administration, education, and taxation, many of which are still considered part of the development of the modern French state. During this period, Napoleon's armies continued to achieve victories across Europe. His conquests in Italy, Austria, Prussia, and other regions helped make France the most powerful state in Europe. At one point, much of the European continent was either directly or indirectly under Napoleon's influence. But the greater the power, the harder it becomes to maintain. In 1812, Napoleon launched a massive military campaign against Russia. Despite early advances, harsh weather, supply problems, and Russian strategies caused severe losses for the French army. This campaign became a major turning point in Napoleon's power. After this, several European nations united and launched another war against France. In 1815, Napoleon suffered a decisive defeat at the Battle of Waterloo. After this defeat, he was sent into exile, and the First French Empire came to an end. The balance of power in Europe began to change again, and France entered a new political era. Over the following decades, France experienced different forms of government. At times, the monarchy returned, at times a republic was established, and at other times another empire emerged. Despite these constant changes, one thing became clear. France was moving toward becoming a modern state. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution began transforming France rapidly. Factories were established, railway networks expanded, cities grew, and industry and trade experienced major growth. Cities like Paris were redesigned, streets were widened, and modern urban infrastructure began to develop. France also became one of Europe's leading centers for science, arts, literature, and engineering. During the same century, France expanded its colonial empire across Africa, Asia, and other regions. From Algeria to West Africa and Southeast Asia, French influence continued to spread. Once again, France became one of the world's major global powers. But growing industrial competition in Europe, nationalist movements, and new political alliances were creating another major crisis. As the 20th century began, tensions in Europe reached their peak. Only a few years later, an event would occur that would push not only France but the entire world into a war unlike anything seen before. And this war would open a new chapter in the modern history of France. By the end of the 19th century, France had once again become one of the world's major powers. It had a strong military, vast colonial territories, a growing industrial economy, and an important position in global politics. But inside Europe, competition for power was increasing. Countries were forming alliances, an arms race was underway, and an atmosphere was developing that would soon pull the entire world into a devastating conflict. In 1914, the First World War began in Europe. France entered the war alongside its allied nations. This war proved extremely destructive for France, especially in northeastern France, where some of the fiercest battles took place and trench warfare continued for years. Battles like the Battle of Verdun became some of the bloodiest conflicts in history. The First World War ended in 1918. France was among the victorious nations, but the cost of victory was enormous. Millions of soldiers and civilians lost their lives, many regions were destroyed, and the country had to go through a massive period of rebuilding. Even after the war, complete peace did not return to Europe. In 1939, the Second World War began. Germany's military expansion once again pulled France into war. In 1940, German forces invaded France, and within only a few weeks, the country's military resistance was defeated. France was divided into two parts. One part was under German occupation, while another French government was established that cooperated with Germany. However, not all French people accepted this situation. From outside the country, Charles de Gaulle led the resistance movement. Inside France, many people secretly fought against the German occupation. In 1944, after the advance of Allied forces, France was liberated, and the country began the process of rebuilding after the war. After the Second World War, the world had changed dramatically. Although France remained an important power, its colonial empire began to weaken. Independence movements grew stronger across many parts of Asia and Africa. Over time, France withdrew from many of its colonial territories, and its role in global affairs began to take a new shape. After the war, France reorganized its political and economic systems. In 1958, the Fifth Republic was established, creating the foundation of France's current political system. Charles de Gaulle played a major role in shaping this new system. France focused on rebuilding its strength in defense, science, industry, and technology. During the second half of the 20th century, France became one of the key countries involved in the creation of European cooperation. After the Second World War, European nations began working to increase economic and political cooperation to prevent future conflicts. This process eventually led to the creation of the European Union, with France becoming one of its most important member states. Today, France is considered one of the world's most influential countries. It is a democratic nation, one of the world's largest economies, and a major center for science, culture, art, fashion, education, and diplomacy. Paris is one of the most famous cities in the world, while landmarks like the Eiffel Tower, museums, historic buildings, and French culture are recognized globally. But the story of France is not only a story of power and success. It is a story of transformation, wars, revolutions, political experiments, and continuous evolution. A land that was once made up of tribal regions of Gaul later became part of the Roman Empire, passed through Frankish kingdoms, witnessed revolution, experienced the rise of Napoleon, faced 2 world wars, and today exists as a modern global power. This was History of France, the story of a nation whose history has left a deep impact on the journey of Europe and the world.